Hey, everybody, welcome to the Elevate Ag Soil Talk podcast, where we dig into all things related to the soil and soil biology with some of the top experts and farmers in the regenerative ag world. Thanks for joining us, and let's see what we can learn together. You know, one of the principles of soil health is to maximize your diversity, and that's so important for growing good crops, for being profitable. And my guest today, Mr. Dennis Anderson from Council Grove, Kansas, really leans into that diversity principle. Dennis doesn't just grow corn and soybeans like a lot of guys around him, but he's growing corn and soybeans and wheat and milo and rye and triticale. He's got cattle, sheep, chickens, and bees. And perhaps his most important crop is the future generations that he is bringing up to be part of this operation as well. So, Dennis, welcome to the Soil Talk podcast.
Morning.
Hey, I gave just a little teaser there of your background and some of the cool things that you're doing there, but kind of set the stage for our listeners. Tell us a little bit more about your farming operation and maybe even a little bit of how it's evolved to get you where you're at now.
Yeah, we farm here in eastern Kansas in the Flint Hills. Growing up, Dad and I, we didn't like the livestock as much, so we concentrated more on farming. And I remember we were pretty, I think my dad was pretty progressive. He was anhydrous before anybody else was, but he also gave that up probably before anybody else really
Yeah.
done. I remember highly erodible ground come out, and we were just having a fit, because you had to have black soil. Black soil is the thing to, and then you had to have 30% residue. And I'm old enough, Keith. You probably remember that's basically meant you could get the field cultivator through it after you shook it out half the day. To
Yeah.
get 30% cover is just we thought it was terrible. And he's like, I've been reading about this no-till, so let's try some fields of no-till, and we did. And I liked it better than he did, but anyway, we got started down that path.
So that,
I,
that would have been, had to have been really early on when the no-till movement, right?
you know,
Mid, late
as a,
80s?
yeah, it was probably about when we got started with that. I
Yeah.
remember No Till on the Plains started, and people said, you need to go to that. There's people doing what you're doing. Like, what do you got to know about that? You just quit tilling. There's nothing to know. Well,
Just
it was crazy. Like, wow. But we were high input, no till. It just kind of bothered me. You'd pick the corn on the hill, and on a windy day, it'd still be, the dust would be trying to blow out of the field. Like, this is better, but it's still not right, And we went to no till. I would go to no till on the plains most every year, and they started talking about the cover crops, and I thought that was some of the craziest stuff I ever heard of. But and then I see the pictures of the rye that was matted down. I'm like, well, that makes sense. There's no weeds going to come through this. We're going to save moisture.
hmm
So I'm a slow learner. I mean, I have to hear this stuff time and time and time again, and slowly implement it. But it's a mind change. You just have to plan ahead. Like our first years of cover crop, and I wanted to do it, and I wanted to do it, and your fall harvest is over with, and you take a breath, and it's time for Thanksgiving and Christmas, and you're slowing down. Like, oh, well, I guess we forgot to do that again this year. It's a different mindset that you have to get into. And here lately, we went down the biological side, and I'm really liking that. And I've got one daughter that's working with me, Amanda, and this type of farming's kind of got her interested. She's more on the livestock side, really likes that more than the farming, but she'll do some farming too. And since then, I've got another daughter that she's getting interested in it. But Amanda, she was kind of my vegetarian, animals, or we can't be treating them bad, all that, and all the. She understands why we eat them now after we've worked with them a few times, but they do have a good life on our place, and she sees, there's other ways of doing it. And I don't want to talk bad about what other people do for a living conventionally, but I think we're carving out a niche that fits us and what some other people want. Eventually, we'd like to get to selling more to people individually. Food, it kind of bothers me that we're feeding the world, but you look at what a conventional corn and soybean farmer, we're feeding some livestock and we're producing some oil.
Yeah.
You know,
Feeding the ethanol plants. Yeah.
I'm not saying it's necessarily bad, but it's not all food. You know,
Yeah.
it's we're not that we're not holier than that.
I,
Makes you. makes you question what you're doing sometimes, you know.
Yeah, and I totally agree. And I think that, one of the reasons that conventional agriculture has kind of, veered down the path that it's gone is because we have gotten away from growing food, putting stuff on, first of all, on our own plates, and then to others, because I do think that that's a different mindset of how you would grow this if you knew you were eating it yourself.
Exactly. Yeah, the glyphosate on wheat, that you listen to the main podcasters or whatever, and every bushel of wheat has glyphosate on and it's killing us. Well, we know that's not every bushel. It
Yeah.
probably
And I
happens
don't,
more than in my part of the world in different places, but it, it's, they just get too excited. It's true that it's out there and it's probably not good for us. But each side, I guess, is what I'm saying, tries to take it too far.
right. I think
Sensational headlines. And,
I think it's great that you're leaning into some of the food production, and I suspect that's maybe what has your daughters interested in coming back.
sure.
Maybe dig into that a little bit here later because I am very interested in that. But I want to pick up on something that you said about planning ahead because that really is important. And people would never consider growing corn and soybeans without, getting their seed lined up ahead of time and their fertilizers, their herbicides. They do lots of planning for that, but then when it comes to cover crops or biologicals, sometimes that's a last minute decision, and it's like, oh, I wonder if we can still get that. It has to be part of your whole management strategy, doesn't it?
Oh, it does. It does. And it's a whole systems approach. That's, I go to these meetings and Elevate Ag, their main headquarters is right over the hill, more or less, here in Morris County. But I'd like try something. I'm just going to replace this and try that. And I don't know, did it work? And like I said, I'm a slow learner. I was coming back from no-till on the plains, and I don't know. That's got to be one of the most dangerous drives there is, Keith, because I'll drive through towns. I don't remember going through that town. Like, you're thinking about everything that you learned, but it just dawned on me that it's a systems approach. You can't just pull out this and replace it with that, and the biology is going to take care of it. So about 2 or 3 years ago, I decided that I'm just going to take. It was like 60 acres of some bottomland fields, and like whatever the people say we need to do, that's what we're going to do. Just bite the bullet. We did it. We pulled Haney's, and I think we interseeded a cover crop with a spinner into the corn and pulled a Haney test. It said we needed 50 pounds of nitrogen, I believe. So we did that, and our yields did not suffer, probably even a little better than normal for that year. But then I thought, so I was sold. Well, I've had some train wrecks too since then because, I got it figured out. But when I picked these fields, they had least amount of commercial fertilizer because they'd been in beans too long, soybeans, and I quit phosphate and potassium and phosphate several years ago. And we've been rolling down the rye, so we had less chemical in there, but still glyphosate and some others. But so I picked these fields. They're good soils, and it worked. Well, now I'm going to make it work everywhere. Well, that prescription does not work everywhere. You can't just pull everything out that hard.
Yeah.
I've learned that since then. So, like this year, we're going to pull. I've scheduled some sap tests and Haney's to be pulled on the schedule so it can be done because I can plan on it now and it won't happen. I've got to get help doing that, but
Yeah.
I think that's the coming ways. The sap, we just need to get it figured out. I mean, who was it that said you have to earn the right to pull back your inputs?
Yeah.
That's
I heard Tom Robinson from
That's who it was.
Australia say that.
it's
Love that.
perfect.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah,
some field, I think on corn, 40 pounds of ends, all you really need to get started. Well, your soils are probably going to produce that, but you need to find out.
Sure.
Don't just yank it out to start with.
Yeah. So that year, when you did that experiment and the Haney test said put 50 pounds of nitrogen on and you didn't see any yield loss, what would you have put on without that Haney test, or what would your typical program be?
Before that, our typical plan would have been 150 pounds in.
Okay. So
And
basically you
before,
saved 100 pounds of nitrogen just by going down the path that you did.
yeah, and before the watching the phosphorus paradox and several times and believing that, we'd put on 30 pounds of phos and 150. That's just what you did for corn, and
Yeah.
we've cut that out and trimmed the end back and trying to apply. I truly believe that the efficiencies of splitting it up to when it needs it is huge.
Make a big difference. Yeah.
Yeah, it makes for a busy summer, but
Yeah.
it makes it fun if you're really pushing it. I think.
Yeah. So just for our listeners, Dennis referred to the phosphorus paradox, which is a webinar that Green Cover did with Dr. Christine Jones from Australia, brilliant soil scientist, and she has 4 really good webinars over on the Green Cover YouTube channel. But the one you're talking about, the phosphorus paradox, leans into the fact that our soils have a lot of phosphorus in them, but you need the biology to unlock it. Otherwise, the plants can't get it. And so, do you feel like you've been able to get off the phosphorus application train because you've replaced that with biology?
Yes, and I kind of started down this road ahead of that. It was a wet year, and I was having to put it on at planting time, so it didn't get the phosphorus didn't get put on anyway. My fertilizer dealer, he called up and said we didn't get your fertilizer on. The corn's too big. And I was upset, and finally he goes, "Well, I don't know why you're so upset. We got your nitrogen on. You'll be all right this year." I'm like, "What do you mean?" He goes, "We just didn't get the phosphorus run. You'll be all right." I'm thinking to myself, well, why do we put it on then? You know?
Oh, you'll be
And he
fine.
was right. It was a good corn year. So I started thinking about that. And another one is I got thinking, well, I don't care where you go for a meeting when they're talking fertility. They always say get your pH right. Whether they're trying to sell you fertilizer or whatever, even if they're not selling you lime, they'll tell you you need to if you need lime, buy lime. So I decided one time, and that's when we quit using phosphorus. I'm just going to take the dollars I was spending on phos and buy lime and get my pH right everywhere, however long it took. And that's what I did. And I just never went back when we got done with the liming schedule. Because, like I said, it doesn't matter who you ask. They're going to tell you the first thing is to get
Yeah.
to get your pH fixed. So, like, that's a
Yeah.
no-brainer.
And here's the good news, that as you reduce your salt-based fertilizers, especially the nitrogen, then you'll stop lowering your pH so much, because then we're the same way. We were farming soils that were 5, 5.1, 5.2, because of years of application of nitrogen fertilizers,
Right.
continually pulling that down. But as you're able to reduce how much nitrogen you use, because you're replacing it with biology, in biological action, because it can make the nitrogen from the 30,000 tons in the atmosphere above you. When you put less of the salt based on, then there's less need for lime down the road.
Right. So yeah, and here lately we've headed down the path of adding the biology through Elevate Ag's products, and I think it's kind of like the livestock and cover crops. You can do it without livestock, and I think you can do it without buying biology, but it speeds it up so much that
Yeah.
it's just huge.
Yeah, it's a way to accelerate the process,
Yes.
get to where you want to be in a much shorter period of time.
But it's also one of those deals. I think you'll see some benefit on ground that's not doesn't have the home built for it. But if you can build the home for that biology and add it, that's just so much better.
Yeah.
I appreciate you guys. The fact that Armin's always saying, if I do my job, you won't need me eventually. Might
Yeah.
take a while, but. And I ask other companies about that, like, oh, no, you're going to use our stuff forever. You might be surprised. We might not ever use it.
Well,
It's got words in the wrong order.
it's exactly right. When you get the soil functioning at, the way that God created it to work, it's kind of a self-replicating system. Now, you'll always have to add seed, because, you don't want to just let volunteer go everywhere. But really, that's going to be the main input down the road, as you get your pH right, you get the biology right, it becomes a system that could be relatively low input. And that's the only way farmers are truly going to be profitable for the long run.
Go ahead, Keith. Sorry.
Well, I think it's going to be impossible to get away from high inputs as long as you are, when you don't have a diverse rotation. So if you're just doing corn and beans, or some people, our neck of the woods here, just do corn, 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 corn. The rotation
Right.
is pioneer corn and then syngentic corn. That's not really a rotation.
Right.
But when you have the diversity, like I mentioned at the top of the podcast, you're growing lots of different crops. You've got the livestock integration. That's where a lot of that biological magic starts to happen, and then you can significantly reduce your inputs.
Yeah, and you don't want to just go for a weedy crop, and you don't have to. But I'm trimming back herbicides using fulvics and different products, and I'll give Elevate Ag a plug there too. That some of the sometimes it's products that you don't even sell, but your sales force will see that this is a fit and get it for them. You're pointing me in the right direction. So we trimming back, and we live with a few weeds, and I don't. That's where the rotation comes in effect. I don't plan on having corn beans.
Yeah.
If a weed or two gets through, it's not a big deal. You have to be upfront and talk to your landlords about it. And I have some very understanding landlords. But a little time in the field with a spade can do a lot. And just explaining what you're doing, they're kind of all the same. If they can make the same money with less inputs and less quote harm to the environment, they're for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that.
Well, I really don't want to farm for them anyway.
Let's talk a little bit about some of the biology that you are using. You mentioned the fulvics and the humics. Are you adding those as part of your spray package? Are you putting them on at planting? How are you using fulvic and humic acid?
The fulvic, we use that with every spray pass. And the humics, I've messed with it some, played with those some. We used to have a planter that had fertilizer, and we added in there. This planter doesn't, so we're using the hyper germ dry with our seed. And this year we put on the humic and that's hypercycle and humic ahead of corn planting this year to kind of get that started. I'm kind of like you, Keith. I'm thinking we need to be running that hypercycle more to get the biology there before the crop planted. The name kind of scared me. Like, I don't want to get rid of my residue. We're going to cycle the residue faster. Well, sometimes we do need to cycle that residue faster.
Yeah.
We get enough carbon out there from rye that we've crimped down. So we're growing, like last year, we grew the rye, planted soybeans, crimped it after they were up. It was pushing it pretty hard. They were pretty big beans. Anyway, we harvested the soybeans and then planting corn this year. We still have that mat of rye out there, which is good and bad. But I think we need more biology to eat that up. But then again, we're protecting it from these rains, and we're going to protect from the evaporation. All bad, but
Yeah. I can remember distinctly, when Brian and I started no-tilling, and we could go out there and we could see the residue from like the past 3 crops. We can see well, here's the corn stalks from last year, and here's the wheat stubble from the year before. And we thought we were great farmers because,
right.
Well, look at all this residue, we're stopping erosion. We've got all this. We thought that was really the way to do it. What we didn't realize is that just meant we didn't have any biology going to cycle that. And we understand that now,
and then when you first started seeing it disappear, then you're like, where's it all going? You start panicking. What are we doing? It's going to wash away on me.
That's where then you need the cover crops to add more of the residue, because now your system is working. It's a living system. Yeah, that's where the cover crops and the biology work so well together. I do want to just, you said that you put fulvic acid in every spray pass, and I think that's really important because my understanding anyway is that a fulvic acid really helps get things into a plant, whether it's herbicide to make it more effective, or in a lot of cases people will use fulvic as a carrier for any trace minerals, trace nutrients they want to get in the plant as well. So If you're trying to get something into a plant, fulvic is a really effective way to do that.
And I also, once we start doing that, I kind of want I want to find out where my herbicides fail, and I'll start cutting back. Maybe find that failure point, take notes, and then add a little bit. But I hear what people are spending for burn downs, talking $50 an acre for the application and pass. I'm like, I don't plan on spending that much on my soybean crop for a herbicide for the year.
You run a load of burn down.
Just the burn down. So there's things that can be done, but you have to think about it and plan ahead and just different things. That there was a post on X the other day: is integrated pest management still a thing? And it was a survey, and the response was crazy. Like, well, sure, it's a thing, but I think it was probably only like 25% of the people. Most people said never a weed ever was their answer. It's one of the choices. That's not my idea of what we need to be doing.
Yeah. What good does it do you to have a perfectly clean field if you lost money doing it?
Well, I bet you it looks good. Nobody's
It looks
talking
good
about
for the short run, but and
right.
it's the same way. What good is it to build up all your soil biology if you go broke doing it? So these, whether it's cover crops or biology, these practices have to make economic sense, and I think they do when it's part of a system, exactly like what you talked about, Dennis.
Exactly.
You can't just be adding these things in and not changing other pieces, other parts of your system. Otherwise, it's just one more input, and it should not be just one more input.
Correct. I'd like to kind of get down more foliar feeding. We've played with the fish a little bit with our drone and Fish Force or whatever the product's called, and we see some amazing things. It really stinks, but I don't know if anybody's ever used that emulsified fish, but you'll never forget it.
Yes.
But it's
Apparently, plants don't have
worse.
noses, right? They can't smell it.
The buzzards, they're flying around trying to figure out what's dead, but
It's funny. Really confuses them. The whole field.
it's bad enough we wouldn't use it if it didn't work, and it works.
Yeah.
You put on your shoes that you want to throw away when you're done in case you spill some or whatever. It just is what it is. But
And so you're putting that
great.
all in through your drone.
We have, yes.
Yeah. Have you found that the drone is, because a drone is a tool, it's on our list of things that we want to purchase because it seems like it's a really versatile tool. Tell us a little bit about how you've used your drone. Are you using it for liquid and seed? Are you using it for crop scouting? What all are you using your drone for, Dennis?
Foliar fed with it. We have interseeded some covers, playing around with that into standing corn in a year that my theory on that is if it's a good year, a good wet year, that's worth it. Go ahead and put it out there. But and we're a marginal corn area, and those years when it's burning up, there's no reason to do that. Just wait till the drill's ready, and because it's coming off early anyway.
Right.
But yeah, we've played around, like I say, seeding different things, foliar feeding, corn, soybeans later in the season. We haven't got to like scouting or anything with it, really. I do a little custom spraying for people, and here in the Flint Hills, cattle are making money, and everybody's wanting to get rid of their Cerisa lespedeza and different problem weeds and brush, and I do a little bit of that. I mean, you kind of got to do what you got to do to pay the bills. Blanket spraying of a pasture is not a good thing for me, but the customer's always right. And if they want to talk about it, we'll talk about it. But it's another one of those deals. I'll use some Fulvics in that just to make those work better. And everybody's like, well, how do you get that to work so good? Well, you got to get your water right, and the Fulvic helps, and all the secrets that a corn farmer can use it on your pasture land too, and you make that herbicide work better.
Yeah, I just did a Soil Talk podcast I did with Jerry Hatfield, and Jerry's doing some really good research using biological products on rangeland in Flint Hills, actually, down by around Wamego. I think they're doing, but they've expanded it now, and he's seeing some really good results of doing a foliar type feeding like what you're talking about. Now, I don't know if they're doing a lot of fish or it's more biology, but they're seeing pretty good results by putting the foliar application on rangeland and not just cropland, and seeing a really good return on investment there. Have you tried any of that?
No, but I have one pasture that I would really like. When I talk pasture, it's native grass in our part of the country, if it's pasture, more or less. And this one in particular, we're rotating our cattle weekly. We'd like to get better, maybe get some callers or whatever. That's another subject. But this one, probably for 60, 70 years that we're rotating through, was a hay meadow, put up for prairie hay, blue stem prairie hay. And so as we rotate through there, when our cattle come out of there, that's when, if we have any trouble with foot rot, pink eye, it's after they come out of there. I am totally convinced we've mined something off of that piece of grass, hauling it off and not feeding it back there. We're lacking something. I guess I need to pull some soil tests and figure it out. But I bet you biology will fix it.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. If you've done hay for 60 years or whatever, which is not uncommon, I mean,
Yeah,
that's a mining operation for sure.
sure. Especially when you don't feed back on it.
Yeah.
I'm not faulting the prior generation. They did what they had to do. And I'm sure 30, 40, 50 years, or maybe tomorrow, probably this afternoon, my kids will wonder why I'm doing what I'm doing. But,
It's after the. Yeah. What the
you
heck
know,
was he thinking?
yeah, you do the best with what you know. But when you know,
That's right.
don't be afraid to move on.
Yeah. And like you said, even if you're a slow learner, be a learner.
Yeah.
And one of the best ways to do that is just be observant. You have to pay attention, and
Right.
you have to be curious and be asking, why is that? Why are my cattle getting foot rot when they're coming off of this pasture and not these? And just start asking yourself those questions.
Why does this field grow this weed? What's that telling me?
Yeah.
A little bit of calcium. I was telling my wife just last night, I said, I think I figured out how we can get rid of our dandelions in our yard here. She goes, what else is it going to kill? I'm like, I don't think it's going to kill anything. We're going to put calcium on it because it's that weed is cycling calcium, trying to break up compaction. I've played with some calcium. It's coral calcium that you guys have got me, and it's loosening up the ground, and it's I can see that. I think, and there's some anecdotal evidence that will help with our dandelion problem. So weeds will tell us something if we can just look at it and figure
Yeah.
out what it
Yeah.
is they're telling us.
Well,
Like, see, we get into the rotation, and that just fixes a lot too. We can live with this weed. We can live with a pigweed this year if we're going to wheat next year, and then we're going to graze it. If the pigweed comes through, the cattle will graze it after the harvest. And
if you get that dandelion thing figured out, you can patent that and retire a rich man there, Dennis.
yeah,
But yeah, it's certainly telling you something. And I don't think what it's telling you is that there's a lack of 2,4-D on your lawn.
right.
So that's how people interpret it.
Yes.
But it's telling you something else. So yes, I think you're exactly right. I want to go back. You mentioned that you're using the Hypergerm dry seed treatment.
hmm
We're using a liquid before, but I do want to kind of start at the beginning of the process and work our way through how you can get biology into the system. And there's no easier way, and probably no more cost-effective way than to do seed treatments,
Yeah.
because you can only put so much on the seed, and so the cost per acre is relatively low. The application is relatively easy, and the benefits are pretty big because you're getting that biology right at where those new roots are growing and coming out. And so I think it's the most effective way to do it. And if you're only going to do one thing, it should be that.
Yes, I think so. And whether it's Elevate Ag or some other, yeah, everybody's pushing a seed treatment, and it's because that's where it's going to work more than likely anywhere else. Biggest bang for the buck. I truly do believe that.
Yeah.
We've played around with growing some of our own biology and putting it on the seed, and I tell people I think it's kind of fun, and it's kind of like trying to make your own beer or something. It's a lot of work and don't really turn out quite the best, but your product is shelf safe, shelf stable, easy to use, and sometimes time is just so much money. But making your own is cool too because it gets the kids and the grandkids excited about
Yes.
it. You see the growth of all the biology when it's fermenting and growing and the pot's boiling, not boiling over, but foaming over, and you treat the seed with it. And it's kind of a fun little experiment that we do on some things.
Sure.
As a general rule, we get the shelf stable stuff that
Yeah.
you guys sell, and just life is easier and quicker to work with that stuff.
It gives you more time to make your own beer then.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or at least drink your own, right?
At least drink some. Yeah.
Yeah. So seed treatment. So, even when we sell cover crop seed, we're putting the elevated fungi, which is a pretty low cost product. We're putting that virtually on every kernel of cover crop seed that goes out the door in a mix, because again, there's no better place to put biology in the system than putting it right on the seed. There's no application cost for people, and it's a very low cost per acre. So, that's kind of our base program for cover crops. And then, the hypergerm dry, of course, takes some of that base biology and is adding in lots of higher levels, so particularly mycorrhiza fungi spores is in that hypergerm dry. It's a great product to help your crop get off to really the start that it needs to, especially if you're going to start kind of pulling back some of these inputs based on a Haney test, based on a SAP test, based on these things. And by the way, I love that you're thinking about SAP testing, because if you're going to reduce the inputs, let me put it this way. You can safely reduce the inputs that you're putting on if you're SAP testing, because the SAP test is going to show you if you're coming up short on something, and then you can go in and add it in. But if the SAP test never shows that you need it, well, then don't put it on, and that's money saved.
Yes.
But if you just completely reduce and then do no checking throughout the year, then that's where it gets risky. That's where at the end of the year, you're going to say, well, man, that cost me 30 bushels of corn. I'm never doing that again. Well, it wouldn't have cost you that if you would have been monitoring that throughout the year. And, it does show that we're going to be short on this. And it may not be nitrogen that you're short on. It may be magnesium, or it might be sulfur. It might be boron. There may be something else, but you don't know that if you're just visually looking at the plant. You can tell the plant needs something, but you don't know.
And that SAP is going to give us time to fix the problem, from what I understand. Where
Yes,
all the other tests this is what's already happened. Next year.
I love the explanation that if you send your leaves in for a tissue test, that's like doing an autopsy.
Yeah.
It tells you what happened, but it's too late to fix anything. A SAP test is more like a blood test, where it's saying, okay, here's where you're short on, and you need to get something out there in the next 5 to 7 days to fix it. Otherwise, you are going to have longer term problems.
Right. Maybe it's just drought and you can't fix it, but then again, you've saved those inputs that everybody else was putting on last fall. That still have some left. Well, you still have all your money left. If it's one of those years, it's time to punt that crop.
Yeah. So
And if you
I
have
love
excess
that approach.
fault fertilizers out there, that's just hindering your biology. Waiting on that rain, it's just not helping anything.
Yeah.
The closer we can apply those inputs to the time they're needed, I think is so valuable.
And I think that's where the drone technology, as drones get higher capacity, they're going to get less expensive, they're going to be easier to use. That's going to be a game changer, in my opinion, to be able to, put, like you said, put those nutrients on when you need them. And maybe you're putting some fertilizers out there, but you're also putting on biology. Maybe you're doing a little bit of fish. It's probably going to be a combination based on what that plant needs, but you're doing it at the time that the plant needs it too.
Right. That's the whole theory. It's a big learning curve, and you kind of have to have a little faith that you're doing it right. But don't do the whole farm that way, but pick some fields and go with it. Learn fun to learn something for the year.
So the seed treatment's a great place to start. Get it on the seed, relatively inexpensive, usually a very high return on investment. Now, are you doing some in-furrow, or you said you used to but aren't set up that way anymore?
Correct. We're not set up that way right now.
Okay.
The next planter probably will.
Okay, yeah, because in-furrow is probably the second best way, because, again, It's not a separate pass through the field. You're getting that biology right in that root zone, right where it's needed.
Hmm.
And if you're set up to do liquid in-furrow, a lot of people are not, especially on their drills. But if you are, that's a great way to do it. And then the third is what you're talking about with the foliar application. What crop, what growth stage, Dennis, are you typically waiting for when you do your foliar?
Like on soybeans, it's pretty late. I'll probably getting close to bloom or blooming, feeding them there at the end. And corn also. And the plan on the corn is we're going to wide drop some liquefied urea, melted urea around V4. I want to pull some more tests, and then maybe about the last time I can get over with my sprayer. If it's still raining, we chase it again with some nitrogen and whatever else it shows we're needing. We'll probably run some fish and folic and hypergrowing, and we'll run hypergrow with that nitrogen fertilizer.
Mm-hmm.
We're starting with we bought 2 greenfield robots, so that'll be the exciting thing this
Oh,
year.
you did?
Yeah.
Nice.
We grow some of our soybeans to be preserved non-GMO. So we planted those in 30-inch rows, of course, so we could mow them. And then I went ahead and got the sprayer package, so foliar feed at night with it too, hopefully. So
Wow.
I'm excited to do this.
I do think that is the future, and I love
Yeah.
what Clint's been doing with Greenfield, and they've come a long way since he started that. But
You
you
know,
know,
we poo-poo glyphosate, and rightfully so, because we overuse it. I don't think glyphosate's a problem. It's just it's used. My point is you open up a jug of clethodim or whatever else you want to say you're using because you don't want to use glyphosate as a herbicide. You don't have to be too smart to know this stuff ain't good for you. I mean, it just stinks. It's all this chemistry has a level of bad to it. I tell people the problem with glyphosate isn't glyphosate. It's not. It's that it's too cheap. It's the $15 generic or whatever the price is. That
and
we
it
just
gets
throw it in.
overused.
You have to. We got to throw it in. You're going over the field. You're dumb not to. And then everybody complains because it doesn't kill anything. But we still got to throw it in. It has its place, but it's overused.
Yeah. Well, I'm really excited to hear that you're doing some of the Greenfield robots, and yeah, I'll definitely want to follow up with you later on about that because I think those have a very exciting
That's
future.
exciting. That's exciting. Something I think Greenfield's good. They'll probably make it all right. This type of technology is going to happen.
Yeah.
I firmly believe. And Greenfield looks like they're just cutting edge to me. We'll
Yeah.
see how the year
And
goes. I'm
love the
excited.
fact that they're, Kansas based company and, you've got good local support there too.
Yeah,
I'm just kind of trying to help
sure.
walk people through the system. Seed treatment, you can go in furrow, then you do the foliar application. And then kind of at the end of the season, I want to talk about what do you do after the crop is harvested? You mentioned the hypercycle, which is a product that you could put on to help digest some of that residue. David Olson, who Sustainable Growing Solutions, that's the source for a lot of the Elevate Ag biology, and we're actually making those products now right here at Bladen. We have a agreement. Elevate Ag and David Olson have an agreement, so we're making those locally here now. But one of the products that we'll be making is the decomposer, which goes with the hypercycle, and you can put that on after harvest. And here's the thing that I never understood, Dennis, that to me is really exciting. I always thought when you put one of these decomposer products on,
Hmm.
you're basically you're putting biology out there. It's going to consume your carbon, all that residue, whether it's wheat stubble, rice stubble, corn stalks. It's going to consume that, but in order to do that, it's got to pull nitrogen out of your soil in order to do that to balance the C to N ratio of their bodies. And that is the case on a lot of products, but with David's decomposer product, he's loading that up with all of these free living nitrogen fixers. And so there's organisms that don't have to get their nitrogen from the soil, they get their nitrogen from the atmosphere. And so what we're seeing when these products are applied in the fall is we're actually seeing a net increase in nitrogen availability without a living plant. So in other words, the carbon source is the dead residue. The nitrogen source is not nitrogen from your soil, but it's nitrogen from the atmosphere. And so that's a powerful thing now. We can essentially produce nitrogen in the off season with no growing plant. If you have a plant out there, it's even better, but you don't need it with the decomposer. And then the hypercycle is the food and the energy and all those enzymes to really speed that up and make it go faster. And so we're going to be doing a lot of work with that on our own farm of looking at how can we utilize this to increase not only the amount of nutrients that are in the soil and in that residue, but actually add to it by pulling atmospheric nitrogen into the system. That's exciting to me.
Yeah, and we used to do fall spring just to control the weeds. Well, if we run a little fall spring just to produce nitrogen, that sounds, it's a similar pass. Maybe we can take the dollars that would have been spent there. We don't do that anymore, but a person could, and maybe put an investment into next year's crop already.
Yeah.
If you're going to try to cut nitrogen, you don't want to do it the day that the war starts. You want to be planning ahead, get your system built up so you can have the ability to trim back on your nitrogen.
Yes.
You got to
Yes.
start
And
with
every pound of nitrogen you can pull out of the atmosphere, it's worth a whole lot more now than it used to be. And
right.
so, that just is increasing the return on investment with biology versus, hey, well, nitrogen is only 30 cents a pound, so let's put an extra 30 pounds out there just as an insurance policy. Well, those insurance policies are now, in our lakes and our rivers and in our aquifers because we did over apply in way too many situations.
In our part of the world where livestock are run, and you could see where a cow pie was later on, the conventional thinking would be, well, you didn't put enough nitrogen on because that shows you needed more. Well, it doesn't necessarily show you that. It shows you that the biology's working great there more, but it's not all a nitrogen deal, And if you're fertilizing to excess to that point, I guess my point is you are wasting dollars on fertility. We know what a good corn crop looks like.
Yeah.
A profitable corn crop might not be as dark a color or whatever, but the yield might be very, very similar to it and a lot more profitable with a little less fertility. We know that crop doesn't need any more fertility. I can drive by at 60 and tell you that.
Yes.
Because you're well beyond the profitable threshold.
Yeah. Well, Dennis, as we kind of start to wrap this up, I do want to talk a little bit more about your future generations. I love the fact that, you've got some daughters, 2 daughters interested in coming back that maybe wouldn't have been interested if you were just farming in a conventional manner. If you didn't have livestock integration into your operations. And maybe just talk a little bit about, why is that important to you? And, what changes do you think you made that helped encourage them to consider this as a career?
It's kind of cool, have the next generation come along. The idea of cutting inputs and actually trying to grow some food intrigues them both. They're growing their own gardens, and one daughter has chickens, and like I said, we have the sheep. The sheep are cool because they're eating stuff that the cows don't. Actually might be making us a couple of dollars instead of costing us money. They see all that. If nothing else, I don't know if they'll want to take over the grain side. My other daughter, she might if she comes back, but if nothing else, I bet whoever farms this farms it. Similar to me, They why does the neighbor do that? Well, I don't know. She's like, honestly, I want to know what the thinking is guess they see that it's washing away or it's blowing and
It's a good question.
Yeah.
That's a good question.
It's hard to answer without sounding holier than thou because we're all doing things we know aren't right. And like I said, in a few years, we'll be wondering why we do what we do today.
Well,
you just
I
feel
think that's
better
great.
about doing it the way you're doing it that way, I think.
Yeah. So with your livestock operation, are you starting to sell some home raised beef to people, and is that an area you want to expand into?
We want to expand into it. We're really not doing it yet, but I think it's there. I have a lot to learn about it. You don't just take the steer because he's old enough and harvest him. We need to figure out how to graze it better on some covers and residues and like that to get a fatter, better quality animal. But the way they're raised has a lot to do with it.
Yeah.
You feel better about giving it to your grandkids because you know that it didn't have this, that, and the other thing.
Right.
It had a good life. There's a lot to that, and that's what's drawing the girls back. And we have a small hive, we have a few hives of honeybees, and it just teaches you got to calm down because if you get wound up, you're going to get stung. It's just some good life lessons there.
Sounds like a good sermon, Dennis.
The little bit of honey that we do have to sell, she said, I forget what the price she asked for it. I'm going to ask this, and she puts it on Facebook. I'm like, sounds high, just be ready for some comments. People are going to rip you for charging too much. I think it's too much. And then about an hour later, she said, well, we're sold out. And I told you should charge more. There's demand there. People want, well, they want to know where their food's coming from. They want to feel good about giving it to their family. And
yeah,
let's just feed our community and feed them some healthy food.
I love that. And one of our customers out in California, Alexander Family Farms, and they have a regenerative organic dairy, and they're producing really high quality milk, but it's expensive. And I love what they say. They say people deserve the opportunity to pay more to get more.
Mm-hmm.
And they're providing that opportunity because they have a superior product. It's extremely high quality because of the genetics and the way that it's all being produced. And they're not afraid to charge what it's worth because they feel like people deserve the opportunity to pay more to get more. And I think people are starting to understand that Dollar General is not going to be where you should go grocery shopping if you're interested in healthy food. So Dennis, as we wrap up here, what piece of advice would you have for someone who's thinking about going down this path of biology? If somebody came to you and said, hey, I'm interested in what you're doing, how should I start?
I'd say pick some fields or field or whatever and make it a whole systems approach. It's a total different mindset. Find some people in the area, even if they're not in the area, online, at some meetings that are doing something similar so you can bounce ideas off each other. We have a little group that gets together from time to time, and that's huge. We got different things we can think of, and it's great. Talk to your landlords and your family. Like I said, a little time out in the field with a spade. Don't be thinking that you don't know anything. You know what good soil is. Look for dig it up, do the smell test, just simple things. Shove a rod in the ground, see where your compaction layer's at. That soil's got to breathe. All those things that you can do, and just educate yourself. But start with the systems approach on a few acres. What you know today, you'll think is nothing tomorrow. You'll learn. You'll just keep learning and learning, and you'll wonder why you haven't been doing more of it on more acres eventually.
Yeah, love that. That's great advice. So start small. Find yourself a team of people that can help you.
Yep.
Don't be afraid to learn.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Don't have to go to local field days. Sometimes I learn the most by driving for hours to some place. And I've had friends like, why do you go to North Dakota? It's different there. Exactly. But the principles work. It's the principles. Make those principles work on your operation. Get the biology of livestock in the soil, on top of the soil. Just to get started.
Well, I think you're a great example of all of that advice. So when you give that advice to people, it's authentic because, hey, this is what I've done and here's the results that I've seen. And so I think that's the best type of advice to have. So,
and we've all messed up, and let's talk about where we messed up.
That's right. So Dennis, thank you so much for joining us on the Soil Talk podcast. And folks, thank you for listening, and we hope that you will tune back in again for more episodes of Soil Talk. Thank you.
Thanks, Keith.
The team at Elevate Ag has decades of experience working with the soil to benefit your farming operation, offering solutions designed to improve soil microbiology, strengthen plant health, and enhance yield. Our team will help you examine the condition of your soil and develop a plan to improve soil health and resiliency while enhancing the biological life of your system. Contact us to work alongside our team to build a program that's customized to the needs and the context of your operation and improve profitability for the future generations on your farm. Visit us at www.elevateag.com or call us at 785 422 7807.